Hey everyone, and welcome to the Uncut series. We are so excited to have you guys on tonight. We are excited, but before we get started, be sure to like, comment, share, and tag us. We are in for a good treat on tonight, and so we want to get the word out that episode 3 of the Uncut series is happening now. So let us know where you're joining us from. We're going to give folks just a few more minutes to come on in. But while we wait, welcome to the Uncut series. We thank you for joining us. Be sure to like, comment, share, and tag someone. So we'll give folks just a few more minutes to come on in, And as you are coming in, just let us know where you are joining us from. Let us know where you're joining us from. All right. Welcome to the Uncut series. We are excited. We are excited to have you guys on tonight. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. It's the time is here and we are excited and we have some good stuff. I keep saying that we have some good stuff on tonight. So before we get into it, I want to officially welcome you to episode 3 of the Uncut series. And for those that do not know, my name is Larice Gerald. I am the CEO and founder of UNCUT. And so before we get started in tonight's conversation, I just want to share a little bit about Uncut Youth. We are a youth empowerment and mentoring organization that has been established since June of this year. So we've been around for a little over 3 months. And so our goal is to help youth uncover their best self, unlock their fullest potential to ultimately unleashing them into their destiny. And so our goal is to service youth from the ages of 10 to 17 in the community to empower, inspire, and engage them. And so we are dedicated to helping our youth morph in who they are destined to become by providing a unique approach to tackling physical, social, educational, economical, and emotional issues that affects them. And so this is the main reason why we formed the Uncut series. And so guys, on tonight, I'm so excited to have a conversation on fear. Wow. How do we address the monsters in our room, to embrace our fears, to overcome our fears, as well as to navigate through them? And if you're like me, I know when I was a child, I was scared of a lot of things, and it may come out on tonight's conversation, maybe. But fear is a big conversation that our youth struggle with, whether they're afraid of the dark, afraid of the monsters, wherever, or if they have a goal that they're trying to achieve that they don't know how to and they're afraid of doing it, or they may be afraid of thunder, whatever it could be, afraid of, whatever. We are tackling it on tonight, and I'm so excited for our guests because this is important to teach kids and parents how to effectively manage fear, to really help them to build their confidence and really to help them overcome it. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm excited for tonight's conversation, because we are unpacking how our children can express themselves through their fears, recognize their fears to essentially conquer it. So I want to bring our guests to the stage. And she is our special guest. And I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce herself. But she is my soror. We are a part of a great organization called Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And so she is a self-published author. And so I want to go ahead and bring to the stage Miss Taisha White. So, hello there.
Hi, Flora. How are you?
Aurora. I am well. I am well. I'm so excited to have you on tonight. So, before we get started in our conversation, do you mind introducing yourself for everyone who's on our line?
Yep, I'm excited to be here as well. I am Taisha White. I am an attorney and children's book author based in Washington, D.C. I'm originally from North Carolina. I got my Bachelor of Arts degree in English and African American Studies from UNC Chapel Hill. And then I went to law school at Howard Law here in DC. And so that's how I ended up where I am. I'm going to try to condense this into as short of a spill as I can, but I am dedicated to writing children's books to help deal with difficult family issues. And what I really am seeking to do is to help facilitate healthy parent-child relationships with the hope that we don't have to do as much healing work in our adult relationships and in life. I was raised by a single mother who was phenomenal. She's an educator. But I also grew up without my father. And I just had this kind of sense of knowing that was not necessarily typical, although it wasn't completely abnormal. And I think I battled internally with feeling a little bit less than because of his absence.
Mm-hmm.
Both of my parents have artistic expression, but in particular, my father used to write me letters and poems as a child. And he was really trying to explain what was going on with him and his own battles that he was facing. But frankly, as a kid, as a teen, I wasn't hearing it.
You wasn't.
I cannot hear it. No, I cannot hear it because I had either internalized his absence as related to me, or I had, as a defense mechanism, decided he was a horrible person. And so I just was not having it. So fast forward, I spent a lot of time, a lot of hard work, a lot of focus, trying my hardest not to repeat that cycle, to make sure that I, was successful, got good grades, got a good job, with the thought that I would have an equally successful spouse and then an equally successful picture perfect family. Fast forward, 30 hit me very quickly, 30 years of age. And let's just say the goal that I was seeking and that I had been so fearful about, making sure that I was crafting for my life had not happened. But just how God works. At that time, my father reached out to me. Because just of other issues in life, I had started going to therapy. So I was a little bit more receptive to him coming back this time. And we struggled for sure in trying to reconcile. But then he got diagnosed with the terminal cancer, and then time was short. And so there was a limited window of 4 months from his prognosis until his passing that we had to get it right. And we did. And the first book that I wrote is just an outgrowth of that reconciliation process, that overcoming of fear and trauma really between the two of us. And I kid you not, the outline for the first book came maybe a day or two after he passed. And so I like to think of the book really as my inheritance from him. Like him, I am also a poet. So my books are written in a poetic style. And so that's how the first book came to be about. And just like that, like my life passion and purpose came together in the midst of what was really a difficult situation.
Wow, this is awesome. I'm like on tiptoe expectation for our conversation because it's so much that you unpacked just in your introduction, that the fear that you had as a child,
Yep.
how it traveled with you into your adulthood, and how you were forced to then reconcile and to confront your fears and to confront your trauma, with your father due, with his prognosis. So,
Yep.
um, it's amazing how life transitions and how it forces you to
Yes.
confront those things that either we wanted to try to hide, and that was uncomfortable for us, or
Mhm.
those things that we just wanted to forget out of our minds. So this I told you guys this was going to be a good conversation, and we haven't even started the questions yet.
Let's get into
um
it.
so if you guys have any questions, feel free to use the chat to ask your questions. This session is also for you guys. So anything that you have related to fear as a parent, as a guardian, as a mentor, for you or for your child, drop them in the chat and we're going to get to them on tonight. So with your introduction, you kind of talked about how your experiences led into you writing children's books, but through your own personal journey as an overcomer, how did you deal with the fear of your father not being present, and how did that impact your development?
Yep. So, looking back, I think, like I said, I mentioned earlier, I really did try to be really good, right? Like I tried to check all the boxes. I wanted to make sure I got great grades, that I was a good student, right? Almost like somewhat overcompensated. I mean, some of that really was just a God gifted, talent. But I really I think I really, really tried to walk a straight and narrow path because I really
Right.
didn't want to be like him, and I didn't want to repeat that. So I'm
Mhm.
honestly going to be honest. I think I overcame it by pretty much becoming anxious.
Yeah.
And I was determined to, like I said, have that successful life and that successful family.
Hmm. That's good. That's good. So, overcoming your fear of the absence of your father. I know when we hear the word fear, it's
Mhm.
like it just makes everyone uncomfortable, just like it has a negative connotation to it. But for parents and, guardians, mentors, and even for a child, like
Yep.
how would you break down and define fear for them? Because
Yeah.
fear can look like so many different things. So how would you break that down?
Yep. So, first disclaimer, I am going to be speaking from my experience and including my experience with therapy, but I'm not a therapist. So, I'm going to kind of share what I've been learning in therapy. I just, as a lawyer, I got to do that little disclaimer.
Right.
But the dictionary defines fear as an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous or
Mhm.
presents a danger to us, and or that is going to be hurtful, painful to us in some way. I think that really hits it on the nail. I mean, the nail on the head, because one of the things that I'm really studying in my own self therapy now is really understanding how the brain works. And
Mm.
there's an amazing book that I highly recommend all parents read called The Whole Brain Child. It's by Daniel Siegel, and I think it is Tanya Bryson.
Okay.
Basically, they, in layman terms, they're two psychologists, and they explain how the brain actually works. And so ultimately, we have a downstairs brain and an upstairs brain, and
Mhm.
it's biological. The brain was designed to protect humans from danger. So
Right.
we're always kind of scanning the room, scanning life experiences, scanning who we meet, just whatever is happening. We're scanning for, are we in danger or are we safe?
Mhm.
That is just our primitive nature as human beings, right? Think about human beings really, we started living more out in the wild, and there were lots of constant, physical dangers. And so our brains operate. That's just how we operate. We operate from just trying to see, is it dangerous or is it safe?
Right.
And in response to that, we have a reactivity behaviors. We can either fight, flight, or freeze is what they call it.
Mm.
So most of us in our interactions, we're unconscious of this, of course. All of this is happening on a millisecond, but we're trying to decide, like, how am I going to react here? Am I going to fight? Am I going to run away? Or am I going to just freeze? And for the most of us, we learn how to, we learn our reactive style from basically how our parents behave.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
fear is natural. It's actually necessary.
Mm. I like that. Fear is natural. And so, guys, as we are having this conversation, I failed to mention in the beginning, we do have a special giveaway for you guys.
Mhm.
So, at the very, very end. So, it pays to pay attention because you don't know what we're going to ask in order for you and your child, or even if you're not a parent and you're a guard or you're maybe a mentor. Our giveaway may be beneficial for establishing a relationship between you and your mentor and your mentee. So you want to make sure that you stay until the end for our special giveaway. But I like how you said,
And
um,
Lorraine, sorry, really quick. One person commented they might be having sound issues, so just want to quickly check for that.
okay, we
I
can
only
definitely. Are you able to hear us? If you can give us a thumbs up, if you can hear us. Thumbs up. Okay, it may have been resolved.
okay,
Okay, perfect. We're getting
right,
we can hear. Okay,
cool.
perfect. So understanding that fear is natural and that fear it's necessary. Um, would you say that fear is normal? Like, because sometimes, like I said, it frightens so many people to hear the word fear. But in some cases, from what you're describing, is that fear may not always be a bad thing.
That's right. It's very normal. It's
Mhm.
necessary, and often it's very helpful. Where it does kind of get off balance is when you're kind of defaulting to fear, right?
Mhm.
So then, and then your perception of things is kind of being interpreted through the lens of your trauma. So
Mhm.
things may be seeming more dangerous than they actually are. And so if you're kind of constantly in a state of what they call hypervigilance, or like, you're constantly looking for stuff to be wrong, that's a trauma
Mhm.
response, right? And you're trying to protect yourself because you're trying to defensively say, okay, what could go wrong? How can I be hurt here? And so you're constantly in that state. And there are ways that that's helpful. Like I said, that was very helpful for me from early childhood until about 30. Okay. That made me be very focused. That helped me kind of avoid a lot of peer pressure. It made
Mhm.
me kind of avoid, certain dating situations. So it has definitely helped. But there are other areas in life where it's not so helpful, and we're responding reactively and constant, like almost like making danger exist when it doesn't. That's when
Mhm.
I think we start to have problems. And and even if there are, like, actual problems, we still don't want to stay in a state of reactivity. We want to more consciously or intentionally choose our response.
Mm, I like that. I like that. So, with that, how would you describe some of so this is a two-part question, so I'll start
Yep.
with the first part, but as a follow-up to really explaining whether fear is normal and if fear is can be a good thing,
Mhm.
for those that are on the line, especially for parents, because I know with the youth that I encounter, as well as with my niece and nephews, it seems like they're in a stage of where they're invincible, they're fearless, nothing scares them, like
Mhm.
they can do everything. Um, so can you break down, like, what are some of the common fears that exist, especially in our adolescents?
Yep. And I'm going to reach back into my own,
Okay.
time as an adolescent. I would say fear of failure seems to be a big one. So,
Hmm.
for instance, am I going to pass? Am I going to get a high enough score on the SATs? And am I going to get into the college that I want to? Is my
Right.
team going to win the championship? I think the fear of being bullied is particularly prevalent now with social media. It's always been there, but I think social media makes it worse. So do
Absolutely.
people see me as weak? Am I accepted in the group? Do people kind of see me as cool or not cool? And do I fit in?
Hmm.
Um, that goes hand in hand with the fear of perception. How do other people see me? Do people think I am pretty or handsome, smart, cool, good at sports, funny? Fear of rejection. So, does this boy or girl like me?
Hmm.
Does this friend, am I going to be accepted into this friend group? Um,
Right.
since we're on UNCUT, I mean, I think we're coming into puberty at that
Yeah.
age, and so sexual things are coming up, like sexual identity, you know, fears associated with having or not having,
Hmm.
having sexual experiences. And then the last one I'm going to say is I think it's fear of being like or not like our parents, and or fear of not pleasing our parents.
Mm. That's big. That's big. And so, you touched on a lot: the fear of failure, the fear of bullying, acceptance, perception, rejection, even, your sexual identity being pressured into those things, and, making sure that you're liked by your peers, and make sure that you're pleasing your parents. These are all very common things. And so, folks, we are tapping. If you don't know anything about Uncut, we believe in having unusual, unorthodox encounters. So we may tap into, some difficult topics that may not be so much age appropriate for your child. But we do want to put that disclaimer out that you may receive information on today that does tap into, you know, beyond what is normal. So, and this is all to, educate you guys on that there are fears associated to things that we may not visibly see. So we just wanted to put that disclaimer out there on tonight. So, with understanding the common types of fear,
Mm-hmm.
how would you associate, or how would you correlate a fear versus a phobia? Or even, you spoke early on in your introduction about the trauma that you experienced as a young child led to your fear of failure, or not wanting to be like your father, or things like that. Can you break that down for us, because it seems like there's so much that there are similarities in each of those.
Yeah, I think it becomes a phobia when there's some irrationality behind it. So like I was saying before, when you're seeing danger when there really isn't danger. And like you're kind of
Mhm.
every like things are filtered as danger. Like, people, have a phobia of spiders, right? Like not every spider is actually going to kill you. Some are though, right? But then now you view all spiders as deadly and dangerous.
Mhm.
Just a kind of a typical example of a phobia.
Right. I could tell you this up front. I was having this conversation. I said, I am fearful and I have a phobia of snakes. But
Mhm.
that was because of, as a young child, I will never forget. I was in school and they had like a pet day in school, and they
Mhm.
brought this gigantic snake, and I was just so petrified to
Right,
see it, because they were forcing us, one, to get close to it, to touch it. And I was so scared. And
right.
honestly, because of that uncomfortable
Mhm.
encounter, I was actually traumatized. And now at, 30 something years old,
Right,
I'm completely traumatized.
right.
And fearful of snakes. So it is real how, fears can, seeing something and not really seeing it, or having the associated traumas, from our past, that can develop into, long lasting fears. So I'm glad that you talked about that.
Yeah,
Um,
you raise a good point though. That is how our brain works though. We have an experience where kind of our brain is tailored to hold on to negative experiences more, because that, again, the main goal is to protect, right? So
right.
good things are great, and nobody needs to like really do anything for the good things, but the bad
Mhm.
things we hold on to so that we can learn from and hopefully not repeat, right?
Right.
So our brain like is designed as like these channels, or these, they call them like highways of information, where if I have a similar experience that was negative, I'm going to immediately jump to this was negative, and so I'm going to react like that. So again, the whole brain child has a whole breakdown on this, and one of the techniques they say to help overcome those negative experiences is called remember to remember. And like
Mm,
basically what you can do is like you did just now, okay, where does that actually come from, and help your child talk through, okay, are you feeling this way because you had this one negative experience where you had this big snake that was scary, and like let's talk about whether or not now is that fear is that really necessary to protect you right now.
that's
And
good.
sometimes it is. I mean, sometimes
Yeah,
it is the
I know I struggle. I struggled with it. And I said, I don't care. Like, if it comes up on the TV, I'll flip the channel so fast. Like, I won't even look at it.
yeah.
I'm like, wow, like, what really caused this? But then I reflected back and I was like, it was something that happened in my past that I never
Right.
confronted. So this is even helping me, and I'm sure some of
Yeah.
our questions towards the end are really going to help all of us who are dealing with different fears and things like that, to how we can help overcome it and how we can embrace it. But
Awesome.
I want to shift just a little bit, because
Sure.
we know that COVID-19 is prevalent. It has been here for the last 18, 19 months.
Hmm.
And so, since we're talking about fears, how do you believe, or do you believe that COVID-19 has heightened the fears of our young people?
I'm going to say yes. I think it's
Mhm,
heightened the fears of all of us. And in fact, I think people have politicized COVID and basically everything else that's happening in the world, right?
mhm,
To play on our fears, right? Like at this point, it feels somewhat dangerous to breathe, right?
mhm.
And like like, and then where's that line? Like, where's that line between what's safe to do and not safe to do in COVID, right? The COVID
Right.
is this invisible thing. None of us can actually see that danger. So we're kind of constantly have to assess like situations. Is it safe for me to go hang with family and friends? Is it not? Is it safe for us to
Mhm.
go to school or not? So it's we're constantly like in this um, safety versus danger like mindset, and nothing really is the same. And so most of us don't you feel very safe when there's the unknown, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot that could go wrong. Um, I will say that for me personally, though, because I have been actively working to become more conscious, right? So basically to move to my upstairs brains, also a term from the book that I just mentioned. Um, I actually see a lot of opportunity because of COVID.
Hmm.
Um, I think for me, I think has become clear to me that the ability to control or manage things really is a facade anyway, right? There's some things that you can control you, but everything else around you, you really don't. You really don't have control over that. You don't have control over politics. You don't have control over what the girl at school, said about you. You don't have control over, you don't have ultimate control over which school you get into, which college you get into. So there's so
Right.
much that you don't have control over. So for me, like really having that facade of control fall down has, I think, really helped me really make a big push to overcoming a sense of living in anxiety, right?
Right.
And I feel joyful now because of that. Letting go of living in a state of fear has really brought a sense of freedom and peace and joy for
Mhm.
me. And again, I see like a lot of opportunities. So, for instance, I'm hearing more and more young adults say that they're going to go to community college instead of going to a four-year school right away because there's so much uncertainty about going back to school. And for those of us that have, school debt, educational debt, that's actually going to be a good thing for people, right?
Mhm.
So it really, there are a lot of people that lost jobs during the pandemic, but a lot of people were able to see opportunities to start businesses
Right.
like you started your LLC during this time and your nonprofit. I am starting my own law practice, which is something I have been noodling on for years, but I've been afraid to do it.
Right.
COVID
Right.
has kind of opened up opportunities to do that. The ability to work remotely is widely accepted now. This conversation, right? Like this
Right.
was who was going to really come on and listen to a virtual conversation before COVID?
Right. Absolutely.
I'm doing a workshop that's part of the therapy that I go too, which is helpful for me because I can stay committed to it because I can do it from the convenience of my home, and
Mhm.
I'm actually talking to people from all over the world on this conference, on this workshop. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I think really for me, the Bible verse of like God can use all things for your good really like is
Mhm.
like highlighted in COVID. Like even the bad things of the pandemic, I think there's a lot of good that can come out of it. That's
Absolutely,
where I am
absolutely.
personally.
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite scriptures actually.
Yes, it is my favorite.
Yes, Romans 8 and 28, all things work together. And
Yeah.
so even though but that's good that you said, letting go of um letting go of your fears can lead to freedom. And I'm gonna put a pin in that because we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back to that because I think that that is such a profound statement, especially with, when you think about COVID, when we talked about some of the common fears, right? The
Mhm.
fear of trying to control something in which we don't have can also be a fear as well. Um, and so I feel like there can be some inspiration towards the end when we talk about ways to overcome
Mhm.
and how to embrace our fears. I think that's a big nugget right there. So if you guys are enjoying this conversation so
Mhm.
far, go ahead and give some hearts, give us some likes. Don't forget, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. We are happy to bring your questions up and talk about it. But if you're enjoying this, go ahead and give us some hearts and some chat, hearts and likes. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So let's get back to it. So I found an article where it talked about that statistics have shown that about 43% of young people suffer with some level of fear during their development.
Mhm.
And so my question is, how are fears developed if such a large percentage how can you develop a fear if such a large portion of that is developed at a young age? So I know that's a lot in one question, but
Yeah.
really, how can we how are they developed if now that I'm 36 or whatever, and I still have fears from when I was younger, how does that really develop?
Living, living life, honestly. So the type of therapy that I go to now, and I'm a proponent of therapy. I have no stigma attached to that. It's a part of my lifestyle. I scream it from the rooftop. Like I am a proponent of therapy as a way of life, and I feel very blessed to be able to have those resources. But I go to this therapy. Concept called imago therapy, and they believe that basically the entire purpose of adult relationships, in particular adult romantic relationships, is to continue the work of healing from your childhood. So
Mm,
basically, we all were children. We don't get to escape that phase of life, right? Like we come here as newborn babies, we're perfect and we're whole, but then we live and we experience. And so those experiences teach us what's safe and what's dangerous, right? Again, we're constant, the brain, that's just how the brain is made. And I think as we learn that and we embrace that, then I think then we can start moving to higher levels. But most of us never get that, right? Like we're just reactive all the time. And
right.
so then we never actually address, what caused that thought process to lead you to thinking that that was dangerous versus safe. And then and
Mm,
then therefore you reacted that particular way. I think that we see a push now, though, and maybe COVID is helping bringing this out. We see a push for people really taking a deeper look at mental health and talking about that more proactively, and just really talking about like being more attuned to helping children or raising children with their emotional state in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of dismissing, oh, you just being a scaredy cat, right? Like really taking the time to like, let's figure out what that is. Because there are ways that the brain can overcome and resolve these fears. Again, the whole brain child, I'm telling you, that is a life-changing book.
The whole brain child. And that leads me to the next question. And you've been kind of talking about this with the whole brain child, but how can our fears, or how can a fear really truly impact our child's cognitive mindset?
Yep. So again, this is Taisha's opinion, not therapist, but I think that, like I said, you can end up being in a state, living in a state of fear or anxiety, which again, you're going to then be in reactive behavior. So you're going to be in fight or freeze, and reacting impulsively like that, you can make life changing decisions that can um, really last for years. So I'm gonna give you an example, and I think this is prevalent, especially for our youth. If I'm at school and I hear word that so and so wants to fight me,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's danger. Danger is physically, but it's also danger for reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on just like where I am, how I was raised, what the environment is, I've got a choice. I'm either going to be ready to fight or I'm going to be ready to flee. At least that's what you think your choices are, right?
Uh-huh.
But you gotta like you gotta face this somehow. Uh,
Right.
and so I think, but if we're operating reactively, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna fight or we're gonna run away. And if we run away, we're likely to be bullied over and over again. If we fight,
Mm.
then there are real consequences of that. We may get suspended. We may then end up in the industrial prison complex from
Right.
split second reactive decision.
That's good. That's good. Um,
Same thing with study like tests. I'm
right.
afraid that I'm going to fail this test. So therefore, I'm going to freeze. I'm going to procrastinate. I'm not going to
Mhm.
do anything.
Right.
Right. And so then because I didn't study, I froze. I did fail the test. And now the messaging is repeated. I'm going to fail. Right. So it really is just kind of bringing it to, the conscious state. My parent is going to be upset with me if they know about X. So I am going to be quiet. I'm going to shut down. Right. Fear can make you shut down too.
That's good too. So when it comes to addressing our fears, I know we have some parents on the line, some guardians, mentors, aunties, uncles, grandparents, or what have you. When it comes to really addressing our fear, because so far we've looked at, what is fear, how it can impact us, how it can, even impact our cognitive state, how it can be developed.
Mhm.
um how can what should a parent avoid when it comes to addressing our fears, in addition to a child that's experiencing the fear? What are some of the things that a parent should avoid doing, with not just dealing with the fear, but dealing with an uncomfortable situation?
So I would say avoid dismissing, shaming, and attacking.
Mm. You
Uh,
guys heard that. Avoid dismissing, shaming, and what was the last one?
attacking.
Attacking. That's key. So, why should they avoid dismissing, shaming, and attacking?
Yep. Because so again, in my studies and what I'm learning, the more you can actually talk about something or create a safe environment for them to talk to you about your fears, one, they're going to come to you as opposed to trying to handle it on their own, right?
Mhm.
They don't yet have the brain development life experiences to handle it on their own. And then two, talking about things helps us move from reactivity brain. So those three options of fight, flight, or freeze to let's think now, how can we actually resolve this? What are some other options? So for instance, I I would probably have a tendency to cry before a test if I like was afraid, right? And
Mhm.
I'll even go to current day. My mother is on this thing. She can attest to this. Even as an adult, as a lawyer at a law firm, I would have moments of being just very distraught about an assignment. Somebody threw an assignment at me, and I don't know anything about that area of law, and I got to turn in something, within
Mhm.
the next 2 days. I'm like, I am literally like, I'm upset, I'm fussing, I'm
Right.
crying sometimes. And my mom, she's up here, so I don't think she'll be upset with me saying this, but she would be like, oh, it's gonna be okay. Just, handle it. You got the, and that is great. I do need that encouragement. But she would sometimes say, put your big girl panties on, which is true. All of that is true. But what I had to shift to tell her to say to me was, are you afraid of failing? Is that what's really happening right
Mhm.
now? And so the Whole Brain Child has a tip called Name It to Tame It. If we can name what it is that you're feeling, then the body and the brain can like kind of calm down the reactivity to it. So if we can
Mhm.
name it to tame it, I'm afraid that I'm going to basically mess up this assignment and prove that I'm really not worthy of being a lawyer at this law firm.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
one of the next tips then is to remember to remember. So then she and I would be able to have a dialogue where, she could say, well, remember how when you first started working for the judge and you were afraid of that assignment and then
Mhm.
you killed it, So it's like,
Right.
it's really just like, let's not like immediately go to, and dismissive isn't always like negative. A lot of us have just by default, just when we say, oh, you're going to be fine, don't worry about that, that's still a form of dismissing, right? And it's not that it's bad, right? Like you were trying to be helpful. I do
Right.
it all
Right.
the time, but
Right.
it's just it's not helping to calm down the reactivity, right,
Mm.
of fight, flight, or freeze. In fact, it
Mhm.
can make it worse because then it can be like, well, my fear really, um I shouldn't be feeling this way, right? Like I really should be able to put on my big girl panties and overcome this.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
just finding different ways to like talk about it and acknowledge, what the child may be experiencing.
Right.
Or
Right.
like attacking, okay? Your kid messed up. If they messed up and you attack, guess what they're not going to do when they mess up again?
They're
What
not going to tell
they
you.
did. They're not coming back to you. So
Right.
so that's
Right.
why we want to avoid dismissing, shaming, and attacking, because we want to keep the channel of communication open between parent and child, because they need you to help navigate life and
Mhm.
these dangers and these, fears and experiences that are very new to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I told you, I can attest to being fearful as you were sharing your conversation about you and your mom. I remember probably in April, I was on the phone with my sister, and I was headed to a photo shoot for Uncut, and I literally like just broke down to her,
Mhm.
and then she's like, "Girl, what's wrong with you? Like,
Right.
you about to go to a photo shoot, like you're about to like totally launch like this whole business, and
Right.
we're excited because it's like I can't wait to tell people." But I told her, even just having the photo shoot, I became so fearful that
Mhm.
I would fail.
Yep.
And she was like, "But you haven't even
Example.
started." But I said, I don't know. I'm just like having this photo shoot is like one step closer. And I was like, I'm
Mhm.
really fearful that I'm going to fail and I'm not going to succeed. And I know this is my passion, this is my purpose, but I'm just so afraid. And so she said, and even to your point to, you know, avoid dismissing, shaming, and attacking.
Mhm.
I remember in that conversation, she did not dismiss my feelings, but she said, it's okay to be fearful, but don't place it in the atmosphere. She was like, because just like your mom said, with all of the other things that you did before and you killed it and you knocked it out the park, take that same approach to addressing this new fear, addressing the unknown. And so I remember that conversation so vividly because she really just helped me like get me all together, and she was like, girl, you're called to this, like you got this. And so that whole not dismissing how I feel, but giving me that real
Mhm.
reality check to kind of help me talk through it, and then encourage me to say, like, you got this. Even if you failed, at least you did it and you tried. But if you don't do it, you're not even able to tap into see what you can do.
Yep.
So that's really good stuff. And so that, just even though that's my sister, if you translate that to a parent,
Right.
keeping that conversation open and keeping that honesty and not dismissing their feelings or shaming how they feel, it
Mm-hmm.
allows it builds that connection to be comfortable to
Yep.
go back to them and have more conversations that may be uncomfortable to have. And so I think that's key, to make sure that you have you're talking to the right people, because
Right.
who you talk to, I think it can intensify your fear more, or it
Mm-hmm.
can kind of help calm you, to let
Right.
you know that, hey, you can conquer this difficult situation, or you can overcome that. So
Right. And
that was
teaching you how to embrace the fear, but not let the fear like overcome you.
right.
Right. So it's good.
Mhm.
If you're doing anything that is worthwhile, you should have a little bit of fear about it, because
Absolutely.
that fear will make you, or it should lead you to preparing and treating it, with the respect that it's due. And,
Mhm.
like thinking about like, okay, what could go wrong? You do need to think about those things, because it
Absolutely.
will help you present, or succeed, but we don't want to just be stuck in that state.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we kind of talked about so much, but the one thing before I transition is, while we talked about things to avoid from a fear standpoint and what parents should avoid, for those parents that may have children, and now that they know, okay, these are the things that I should avoid, if my child has a difficult experience, or has a fear, what would be some signs that a parent should look for, if their child, to see whether their child is struggling with the whole, the monster in the room, or an
Mhm.
uncomfortable situation, or fear? So what are some of the things that they should look for in behavior?
I would say look for the reactive behavior.
Mm.
Okay, look for shutting down, like
Hmm.
being extra quiet.
Hmm.
I would look for aggression, like the fighting concept. And
Hmm.
I would just kind of look at like things like overly procrastinating. Like, of course, we all default and want the pleasure thing. So we all are going to want to play the video game instead of studying. But if there's an
Absolutely.
overdoing of that, then there probably is something worthwhile to explore there.
That's good. That's good stuff. And so, knowing that these are things that they should look out for, the change in the behavior, more of the reactive behavior, the fighting, the overly procrastinating.
Hmm.
Um, at what point, and we know you're not a therapist, but
Right.
from your experience, at what point do you think that a parent should seek medical attention for their child when dealing with their fears?
And by medical attention, you mean like mental health therapy?
Mental health therapy and things
Yeah.
like that, or speaking to someone beyond their
Yeah.
parent.
So first, I think we want to make sure we don't respond by that being immediate, for kids, because there is still so much stigma attached to it.
Mhm.
Um, I think you got to really know your kid, and I think you got to know when it is kind of severely impacting their life. Because the first step might not be going to a psychologist.
Mhm.
Like there could be a good coach that the child could talk to. There could be, like pastoral counseling at church.
Mhm.
There could be like, well, maybe you want to talk to your mentor about that. And so
Right.
I think really being in dialogue with your kid. Like, I mean, there are certain, mental health issues that do require,
Mhm.
medical treatment,
Right.
right? And when it's like the aggression is you're not able to rein that in yourself. You're
Mhm.
not able to kind of rein in your child's phobias, right? They're so anxious that they can't even, go to school.
Right.
So I think when you see it really like severely impacting their life, right, then it's
Mhm.
time to go to like a therapist or psychologist.
Mhm.
But there may be steps along the way before we get there.
Got you. Got you. Got you. So I just have a few more questions, more so
Sure.
from, a treatment standpoint, strategies for embracing. So we've talked about, listen, from what is a fear to, looking at signs,
Mhm.
how it impacts, our cognitive mindset, our physical mindset. Um, and so because you are an author that has written from your own personal experiences, in your book, I Did Not Leave Because of You.
Mhm.
um to me, it provides comfort to children, of course, whose parents have left, but more so how to deal with those uncomfortable experiences of, feeling like you're parentless, or dealing with, like, why did my parent leave, or,
Mhm.
why is my life um like this. So my question, coming from a place of where you dealt with that hands-on, and really transforming your own personal situation into a book of comfort and hope, what advice do you have for children who are dealing with an uncomfortable situation, maybe like directly like yours, or similar, but what advice do you have for them if they're dealing with something that presents them that discomfort, or that monster in the room?
Yep. So I'm going to default back to that book. Let's name it to tame it.
Name it to name it.
That's one of their like little tidbits. Each like section has a tidbit. Name it to tame it. Let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm,
I know that there. Let's find who it is safe to talk about these kind of issues with.
mm-hmm.
Um, but we got to talk about. We got to
We
face it.
gotta talk it. We gotta face it.
Yeah.
And so, because we have to name it to tame it, and name it, yes, name it to tame it, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Um, how can a child overcome a fear or a difficult situation if they don't even know that it exists?
Um, that's a good. So that's why they shouldn't be trying to operate in life by themselves. Right? There's
Mhm.
even as an adolescent, you're still a child, and you still need that guidance. And so, you might not be able to name it, but in talking about, hey, for instance, it could be, hey, I have, the SATs coming up, and I'm just really not able to focus on studying,
Mhm.
right? If you are talking to your mentor about that, they hopefully can pick up that, like, or at least try to figure out what's going on, right? So we can go
Mhm.
through the checklist of, like, is it just you're distracted at home? Is there like a teen love that's now distracting you?
Mhm.
Or is there something else going on? Like, are you afraid of this test somehow? And then once we kind of have conversations about it, we can see what the issue may be. It could be either
Mhm.
of those things, and now we can come up with strategies to deal with the distractions. If it's the fear of failure, then we can come up with a strategy of how to prepare. Right? That
Mhm.
fear really is just your mind and your body trying to help you. It's trying to help you, and what it's trying to help you do is to prepare. If you're feeling overly anxious, that means you're not feeling like you're prepared enough.
Okay. And so that leads me into, we know that we deal with uncomfortable situations every day. We deal with monsters in the room every day. Do you have any additional advice for how kids should find the courage? Because now that we know that they need to name it to tame it, how do they even find that courage?
Um, how do they find the courage? Again, I think it's through life experiences. So what I hope to do when I have kids is, I want to kind of keep a journal of their life experiences so that I can help them remember to remember. So I
Mm,
want to, like, provide. So I think that the main thing as a parent, and what I hope to do, I won't do it perfectly. I already know that, is to just be their safety, their place of safety, so that even if they're messing up, things don't go right, you know, I am still the person that is their safe place. And
mm,
so I'm the person that kind of helps them bounce back, I think. So I think the courage to overcome it really is like a knowing of past experiences where you faced something similar and then you overcame it.
mhm,
Right. And it's just like a kind of constant, and basically, and having them know that regardless of the outcome or something, they have that safe, supportive, environment and community, and that they're going to be loved regardless.
That's the key. That's the key. And so I think you actually just answered my last question for you. And for I'll share it for those that or who are on the line. Personally, I've heard that the only way to overcome your fear is to face it head on.
Mhm.
I think what you have provided us on tonight is the constant reminder, remember to remember. And in order to embrace it, you have to remember it to remember it. But then you also have to name it. And so looking at everything that you provided for us on this evening, do you believe that facing it head on, even if it's uncomfortable, even if we don't know how to, facing it head on is the most viable solution, especially for our youth?
So I think facing it is not always acting on it. And I
Mm.
think people get that confused when they say face your fears, right? Sometimes the facing it isn't the doing. I
Okay.
think it's the processing of the fear. So, and I was thinking about this the other night. It's just sometimes the fear is warranted. So,
Mm.
for instance, I might be fearing not fitting in with a particular crowd if I don't do X, if I don't try this drug, if I don't
Mhm.
do this particular act, if I don't fight this person. And that might be a real fear.
Right,
I think
absolutely.
being able to now not just immediately react on that fear and have a chance to take a step back, especially if you have a loving, supportive, safety net, a parent, a mentor, a
Mhm.
friend. The response might be we need to flee this situation. That might actually be the intentional, thought out, calm,
Mhm.
not reactive behavior as a result of that fear. So I think it's really, I think we got to face processing the fear, not just face, face whatever it is that's like fearful.
Right.
Right? It's not
Right.
like just do it and then you overcome the fear. That sometimes is the answer, sometimes it's not.
Mhm. And so if you built up the courage to process the fear, but you feel like it keeps coming back, how do you deal with the persistence of the fear, and how would you handle
Mhm.
that?
Yep. So again, the definition of fear is the unpleasant feeling on the perception that there's danger.
Mm,
So what we got to then challenge is this really danger?
gotcha.
And what
Gotcha.
type of danger is it, right? So that we can then
Gotcha.
overcome it. So hopefully we can move whatever it is that we're facing to not be a life or death type danger, but a
Mhm.
danger that is one that we can contain and overcome.
Got you. Got you. Got you. You guys, this has been awesome.
I hope so.
This has been awesome
Great.
on
Thank you.
tonight. This is truly, my soror has dropped some nuggets on tonight. Okay. I have pages and pages. And so
Much.
before I give you an opportunity to share any final thoughts,
Sure.
as promised, we have a giveaway for you guys. So we hope that you were paying attention. And so I am so excited. I referenced her very first book. I did not leave because of you. She referenced it as well. And so because it is a book of hope, and it is a book to help young people overcome those difficult situations that they face in their life. Here at Uncut, we want to bless a few folks on the line with their own copy of her book, I Did Not Leave Because of You. And so in order to get that book, we're going to ask you some questions.
Mhm.
Okay. And so depending on who's on the line, I have a few books. I have a few books to give away. And so they will be autographed by her, as well as sent directly to you, because we know that this was an uncomfortable conversation, but we hope that through today, you've learned, one, how to identify your fear, how to identify a fear, but then also also best practices for embracing it and overcoming it. So, let's talk about, I'm going to give you guys two questions. And whoever gets it right, we're going to contact you offline and we're going to make sure we get that book out to you.
Yep. And for my family, you guys already have it.
So family, you are excluded. You are excluded from this. But let's go back to hmm. Let's see. Let's talk with some of the common fears. If you can provide me with 3 of the common fears, that's your first question. 3 of the common fears that our young people face, what would they be? 3 of the common fears. Three of the common fears. Okay. We know you guys were paying attention.
Maybe they can put it up in your DMs after.
Okay, so we'll do that. So list 3 of the common fears. And then also, I want you to tell me what is one takeaway. She talked about strategies for overcoming. Towards the end, I'll start off with, dismiss and fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
But along with the 3 common fears that our youth are facing, as a method of addressing our fears that our young people have, what is the best practice for family members, mentors, guardians, and so forth? So drop those in my DM. You guys have until tonight. After tonight, I'm going to do a giveaway on our social media pages because I want to bless 3 people with a personal copy of her book, I Did Not Leave Because of You. So make sure you DM us. You see my social media handles below my name, so you can DM us or message us at UNCUT Youth LLC. And so I can't wait to see you guys' responses. So we're going to wrap up, but do you have any final thoughts for us?
Well, actually, I greatly appreciate this opportunity. I hope that more and more people will join me and the community of those of us who are trying to focus on healing and to creating healthy relationships from childhood up. I can be found on Instagram at author Taisha White. Also, the same handle on Facebook. And I am actually working on my second book, which this is the cover. It's still being illustrated right now. I have like 4 more images to get illustrated, and it's called A Little Light. And this book is a bedtime story that is written from the voice of a child to help the parent understand how much sway they have on their internal sense of self, internal sense of being, whether or not they are shining brightly or dimly. So stay tuned for that. I'm hoping to have that done very soon. And yeah, I greatly appreciate this opportunity to speak to you all.
Awesome. Well, guys, there you have it. We have completed episode 3 of the UNCUT series on unpacking our fears. So we hope that you guys have enjoyed tonight. I know I have. These practices are going to help me in my daily walk to conquering those monsters in the room, those uncomfortable and difficult situations that we face. So until the next time, we want to say thank you so much for being online with us for this past hour. We hope you enjoy it. And until the next time, we'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.